All right,
Okay.
friends. This is we get our little bit of this is our pre-show chitter chatter, right? So
hmm
this is the kind of
Right.
what it sounds like before the show. But let's start things off officially here.
Okay.
Some inside baseball.
Uh, oh my gosh, I haven't even looked. So this is part of the pre-show chatter, trying to figure out exactly how to pronounce the names um, of our wonderful patrons.
hmm
We have a patron, and I can't tell whether the last name is a Roman numeral or not. Should
Yes,
I?
I believe so. Yeah,
Okay, all right,
yeah.
cool. So I'm going to do it this way. All right. And Scott, you ready with the episode title?
I am ready, Gil, with the episode title.
All right, we are going then. This episode of Ludology is produced by Morrow the 15th, Anders Bernland, and Boris Lau.
Ludology, episode 232.
The show must go online.
Online!
I love it. Yes. Man,
Yes.
I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna keep going, but I'm just so excited about this because like we always get so excited about the show title, and that is always edited out, fairly. But now
Mhm.
we're just the smiles, right? For
Yeah.
how much we love our episode titles.
Yeah,
Nothing,
yeah,
nothing like a good pun, right?
yeah.
I'm Emma Larkins.
I'm Gil Hova.
And I'm Scott Rogers.
Today, we're so excited to come to you live from Gen Con Online with our, I guess, is this the very first Ludology live stream?
This first Ludology live stream. We've done
Ludology live stream,
live
yeah.
before,
Yeah.
but this is the first time we've streamed it like this.
Yeah, Ludology live stream.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
living in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So technological.
And if we're lucky, we'll get a ferret coming by to say hello also. I hope that
Yeah.
happens.
I'm so, and a cat too, although my screen's a little bit cut off here.
I left the dog outside.
Aw. So, just have a pet stream.
Yeah,
So
on my Twitch stream, you can spend channel points to summon a ferret.
oh my gosh, I need to tune into your stream more, Gil. I know you're
Yes,
doing
you do. Everybody does.
yeah.
Game Biologist has done it.
There. Ferret. Oh, ferret points. And here's a reminder to guests, because this is part of Gen Con Online, don't forget to turn in your tickets in the true Gen Con fashion. Also, Gil will be leaving at around 5:50 Eastern time to run another event, so we're going to fit in most of the show there. The slot goes until 6:30 time
Eastern,
zones.
yeah.
Very tough for me.
Yeah.
I'm on the West Coast, different times. So Scott and I will hang around to answer any last minute questions. So I did want to check in with the hosts. One of the things I'm happy to do is, get to know each other a little bit more and share a little bit about what's going on with everyone. Asking how people are is a tricky question in these times, but yeah, just something about, how's your day, or some highlights, some things. You want to kick it off, Gil?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia conversions lately. That's sort of been my side gig these days. And I'm really enjoying it. I really, really like it. It's the kind of work that it doesn't take an incredibly long time compared to other things. Like when you edit audio, it's like you spend 8 hours and you've moved like this much on the timeline. It's like you've got nothing to show for it. Whereas with something like this, like a good day of work, there's a bunch of other days of work past that, but you feel like you've done a lot of stuff, and it engages a whole different thing, a bunch of things to do. I get to do some graphic design, I get to do some programming, I get to do some 3D object modeling. It's all these different challenges put together, and I really enjoy the challenge.
And if things get too frustrating for you, you can just flip the table.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's the tabletop simulator way.
Yeah. Flipping the table is incredibly enjoyable. Scott, how about you? And we're going to dig a little bit more into what we're working on. We have been working on, we will be working on, but just for a quick overview of last couple of days, week, whatever. It's been keeping you busy.
Yeah, I have actually been doing a fair amount of pitching lately.
Nice.
I found that I actually feel like the whole situation hasn't really slowed down my pitching. I've met with several international publishers and showed them my games, and I have some interest, so knock on wood. And then I've also been doing a lot of promotional work for this documentary film that I was in called Game Master, which was it's on streaming on like iTunes and Amazon Prime, but it actually just came out on DVD. Look at that.
That's so exciting. I love the show and tell.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So, so yes, I am in this film along with a lot of other really fantastic game designers, friends like Eric Lang and Matt Leacock and Elon Lee, and the documentary essentially follows 4 new game designers, myself included, because ironically I am still pretty young at this, and including the designers of the games Arranged, Thug Life, and Trekking the National Parks. And we're also going to be doing a little panel tomorrow on Gen Con online. So if you want to join us and kind of hear what everybody is up to and more about the movie from the director, Charles, it's going to be a nice panel. But I highly recommend watching the movie at the very least, even if you are a old professional like Gil, who has his own empire of gaming. There's still probably some fun things. As a matter of fact, I think, Gil, you're in the background of one of the shots at your formal Ferris booth.
Nice.
Well, I never signed an NDA.
Yeah, well, there you are making a cameo.
All right.
But yeah, it's really nicely made, and I think everybody who loves board games will enjoy it.
All right, so
Awesome.
How do I get this box inside my computer or my television so that I can watch this movie? That's what I need to know.
Well, here, let me push it in there for you. Oh, it's not working. No, it's
YouTube.
That's actually it's actually for sale on Amazon right now. But you can also, there's a variety of ways to stream it. You can do it through iTunes, through Amazon Prime. If you have a PlayStation or an Xbox, you can stream it through their video services. So it's other than the only thing I don't think it's on is Netflix, but everything else it's there. So
nice, yeah.
Check it out. It's called Game Master.
I always joke with my husband that, like, do we even have any ways to play physical media in our apartment anymore? It's one of those bizarre things.
Yeah, I like stuff. Well, look at what's behind me. I like things. So,
yeah.
So it's
and for me, over the last few days, just kind of doing a little bit of this Gen Con online. I got to do an Instagram live interview with GameRight, which is super fun. They, I don't know if they're making them available for distribution, but they are at least sending me some Abandon All Artichokes patterned face masks with all of the vegetables on them. So that is incredibly exciting for me. That's been one of the highlights of my past few days. Getting ready for the show, getting ready for this show. I'm doing the table takes with Gen Con. It's going to be tomorrow afternoon-ish. Talking about the show, just Gen Con stuff in general, so it's going to be really fun. But we're going to, over the course of this show, we're going to talk a little bit more about Gen Con Online. We're going to talk about, dig a little bit more into some of the game designs and things that we're working on. Talk about online conventions, and then also just Ludology, what we've been thinking about the show, we've been discussing behind the scenes. Just get a little behind the scenes look. Excited to reveal a little bit of how the pudding is made to y'all. And we will have some time for questions. Feel free to post anything in the chat if you think about questions while we're talking. We'll probably answer those towards the end if anything does come up.
And Em, I just realized you're wearing a remote playtesting t-shirt.
Yes.
By Aaron Wilson.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to remember before. I was like, oh, who's the person who did this? But yeah, this is one of my favorite new board game
such a cool
shirts. Yeah. And who is that again, Gil?
Aaron Wilson. He
Wilson.
designs property guys, and he just announced a new publishing company venture with Ian Zhang.
Oh, very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look for that, maybe we'll put in the show notes or something, because some really great merch, right? Cool. So that was a quick overview of some of the more recent stuff, but I do want to dig into every one of the hosts and talk about some of the things that we're working on, some of the things that we're designing, playing, watching, just talk about ourselves and kind of our inspirations at the moment. Scott, how about we start off with you?
What I've been up to? Well, actually, so I've been on this quest to get my family to evolve as gamers, because usually we play a lot of dominoes, a lot of Uno, a lot of very simple games, not what I would consider hobbyist type games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get their taste to evolve. So if you follow, I have actually a geek list on Board Game Geek where I'm kind of chronicling the games that we're playing. I think we're up to about almost 50 games that I have, different games that I played with them. But recently we played a little game that actually everybody liked quite a lot. That was called Abandon All Artichokes.
Yeah.
I gave a copy to my wife for her birthday the
Aww.
other day.
That's awesome.
And we played it, and they quite liked it, and it was a hit. So it will be fortunately staying in the rotation alongside Uno and Dominoes and a few others. So yeah, it was great. Congratulations! It's really a fun game. The art is adorable. The game is super easy to learn. It reminds me a fair amount of Sushi Go, which is another one we like.
Yeah.
And it's so congratulations. It's a lovely game.
Thank you. I am absolutely want to check out that list. We can post the link to that in the show notes as well, because
Yeah.
I think that's something, just the question for people who are not hobbyist gamers, maybe you've never played a game other than Monopoly, or maybe not even played Monopoly before. I'm always looking for a good solid list of recommendations for those kind of people.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes, and I'll even put it in the chat here.
Awesome. All right, Gil, you want to talk a little bit more about the stuff you've been working on, designing, thinking about?
Yeah, let me pull up my notes. Well, first off, there's an IP-based game that I can't talk too much about, but it turns out those things move very slowly if you're trying to work with the people who are working on an IP as they are working on said IP. It turns out they respond very slowly. So hoping that I'll get some answers soon there. High Rise is in stores right now.
Woo!
Rival Networks is in pre-order right now. I'm leaving in 40 minutes, 35 minutes to go to a demo of Weird Stories. So, that one's very much in the hopper, and people are really enjoying that. It's come a very long way. And of course, check-in cards we've been playing before every demo, and people have been receiving that really well. It's just this whole idea of, like we discussed in the safety episode we did, this idea of just checking on people and making sure putting a culture of putting players first, I think, is really important. But one of the things I'm really excited about is I have my own Twitch channel that I've been doing a lot of lately. And the most recent episode, we did an episode of Fiasco. We played a game of Fiasco.
And
we set it in the world of Animal Crossing.
Oh man, I was so sad I couldn't make that one, because I was just like, it's all the best things.
The video of it is up on YouTube now.
Awesome.
It is. It will rob you of inness points. I will tell you that right now.
The seedy underbelly of Nook's Crossing.
Yeah, very much so. But everything, I'll put some links to it when I'm done talking here. But that was such a memorable episode. Next Thursday we'll be back to the regular schedule. The first week of every month I play the network's executives. The second week we play Weird Stories, and the third week we play High Rise. And then any further weeks we play other games. We played Devil Gara Eloquentia last week, and that is a phenomenal game, one of my favorite board games. And this week we did Fiasco, and next week it's back to Networks Executives.
Nice. All right, so
Emma, what have you been keeping yourself busy with?
Yeah. Ooh. Over the last 3-ish weeks, month or so, I've really dived headfirst back into game design after being a little away from it for a while. So it's been really good to get back in and to start making things. I've actually been meaning to do a series of tweets about motivation and some of the things that helped me get back into it after having trouble, getting motivated for a while. So it's been really nice to come back, to be designing things. What's been really inspirational for me in particular is co-designing things. So I have several games that, even just messing around with things, I have established designer friends who have things that they're pitching and have reached out to me, and we've worked on things. I have friends who aren't published designers yet, or even really designers yet, who I'm just tooling around with things. I'm like, we can make a game together, and it's a fun thing to do, especially because we use draw.io, we use just prototyping and fooling around in Tabletop Simulator, like, oh, let me make a bunch of dice and just throw things around. So, when you can't see people in person, designing remotely can be a great way to connect with people. So I've been doing that. I also made a bookmark micro RPG called Unravel in less than 2 weeks. So great. Travis D. Hill did this really awesome, amazingly successful Kickstarter for Our Innermost Thoughts, which is a mostly solo RPG zine. And he's done a few projects like this before, but this one totally blew up, probably because of the solo nature and zine, small format. He's already printed the things and is delivering them as we speak, I believe. So it all happened very, very fast, but it was cool. He reached out to me to contract to make this game. We went back and forth a little bit and made it. It's on a bookmark. It's shipping out with the zines, so that's super exciting.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's like I published a game in the last 2 weeks. Unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen a month ago, so it's really cool. Starting great. To get to know people and having these projects that just come together so seamlessly or so quickly. And I'm working...
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm working on another co-design that's like a storytelling game where you're androids having no context of how to solve mundane human problems. So getting a cat out of a tree, kind of a noun verb sort of a thing, where he's like, explode frozen turkey, and you have to tell the story of how that comes together. So working on how to mechanize storytelling a little bit there. Also working on some fun ideas for games that were on my list of things. I'm like, that will never happen. And then a publisher reached out and they took my weirdest ideas. So it's not signed or anything yet, but I'm having fun going back and forth with that. And then, of course, kind of keeping an eye on Abandoned All Artichokes, continuing to look out for reviews and things. Just, that was going to be the big thing for Gen Con this year for me, was to be able to, Gamewright has a big booth at Gen Con, and seeing everyone buy the games and just kind of being in the midst of that. So it's been a little bit of a bummer not having that, but luckily just online and digitally, hearing people's personal stories about it has been really nice.
No, that is kind of a bummer, right? That's one of the real pleasures of Gen Con, is to do that victory lap. Right?
Yeah.
You did a good job, and you're like, woo, I made a game, and people like it.
Yeah.
And then, to not be able to do that is a bummer. Well, we can do it right now.
Yeah.
Woo, you made a game.
Good job. Yeah. I'm incredibly lucky, with Gamewright as a publisher and being more of an evergreen thing and less of flash in the pan. It's still going to be a thing. Next Gen Con or whenever it is that they're at conventions again, there will be a time. And it'll be interesting to see, once we can get together again and start going out to the world, maybe there's another resurgence at that point, just being able to be at MOX or something and seeing people play it and teaching people the game. Definitely looking forward to that in the future.
That's awesome. Hey, something you mentioned earlier that reminded me of something was, you said you were teaming up with novice game designers to help them work on designs. Something that I've been involved with over the I said the break over this break from life we've been taking.
Yeah.
I've been involved with the tabletop mentorship program.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I have a couple of mentors. I have our mentees. I have an experienced designer, actually, somebody who's had a game published. His name's Glenn Cotter. He has a really nice card game called Fickle that came out last year. And so he's had a game that he's been developing, and so I'm helping him with stuff. Although he's a really good designer. I don't know how much I'm helping him or not. But the other fella is an artist named Adam, and he has a really cool idea for a game. And so it's been, this is something that I teach as my day job, but being able to guide and give something back to other game designers is always a worthwhile pursuit. So good for you for doing that, Emma.
Yeah, and it's good, it's refreshing, and it's good for both sides, right? I learned so much, and a lot of just, I think, being a designer, spending a lot of time with just designers, like you definitely get into a very particular headspace, and designing with people who play a ton of games but aren't in the same echo chamber, right? It can be really great to have that freshness and like, well, we could do it like this, like, yeah, that's weird. It's like, well, why is that weird? It's like, I don't know. It's just not how it's done. And then you do it and you discover all this stuff. So it's really fun.
Right. Getting that perspective from someone who isn't already thinking, well, I've got to do this certain way because this is the way it's done.
Yeah. All right. So on to our next question. We're here at an online convention, right? It's a weird mental trip because I'm in my apartment where I spend all of my days, but I'm also at Gen Con online. So we can do both, right? I wanted to check in with you all and see what do you think about online conventions in general, what your ideal online convention looks like. And I think this ties a lot into Ludology as a show, right? Because talk to a lot of game designers, and if this, at least for the time being, is the future or present of game design, marketing, connecting, I think it's something that can take a little thought, and potentially by discussing these things, we can find new and exciting ways to make this online convention world a reality. Gil, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is I've done convention organization stuff in the past.
Yeah.
It is an enormous amount of work. And it's a lot of work even when you're just doing something that's the same thing you did last year, mostly. And that's not the case this year. Everybody's doing something totally new, and you have no idea whether it's not, or not it's going to work. So, I'm going to applaud the Gen Con staff for all the work they've done, all the really, really hard work. I mean, I can't imagine, how stressful it's been for them.
Yeah.
So, hats off to them. They've just done a lot of stuff. And I'm saying this partially because I'm going to be saying some things that, are things that I find need improvement. And I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not saying it in the frame of, oh, they did a terrible job with this. No, they did a really good job with this. It's just that stuff like this, in terms of board games, the board game world hasn't really been done before. So, now we're applying our 2020 hindsight and figuring out what can be done better. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is this is a little bit like the weather in terms of whether or not you like virtual game conventions. They're going to be a fact for at least 6 to 12 more months, at least. And 6 months if we're excruciatingly lucky. And frankly, I don't really see that happening. So, we just have to this is a reality that we've been dealt with, and we've got to get used to it. And, we can say, I don't like online conventions. Well, that's fine, but that means you're not doing any conventions, or at least you should not be doing any conventions.
Yeah.
If anyone's silly enough to host an actual convention these days, things are gonna get really, really bad. So yes, those are the two things I wanted to get off my chest right at the start. So overall, with this convention, with virtual conventions in all, what's been working with the convention are the Twitch streams have been really, really good. I'm saying the stuff, this stream, I think, is the best stream in the history of Gen Con.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Other than this stream, which is the best stream in the history of Gen Con, the other streams that Gen Con have been doing, the stuff on Gen Con TV and Gen Con Studio, that's all been amazing stuff, really watchable, really fun to watch. The music concerts have been an absolute blast to watch. Really, really great stuff. My scheduled events that I've had have all had really excited, enthusiastic people, just like regular Gen Con. So that stuff has all worked really well. So let's get to the stuff that I think could be better. I think that what virtual conventions suffer from is a lack of convening.
Hmm.
Like, a convention is about getting people together, and I don't get a sense of that. Like, I still feel extremely isolated when I'm at a virtual convention. And I think part of that is how decentralized a lot of these conventions are, because they're not in one single place, you know? Like, a bit of it is on the Gen Con Discord, a bit of it is on Twist, a bit of it is in the Looking Glass. You know, there's like 3 different places you can look at. And then the actual gaming for this particular convention isn't even in the Gen Con Discord. It's scattered far and wide in a bunch of secret Discords. And I've spoken with Gen Con that I really don't like the idea that all that gaming is in these Discords that you can't post a Discord link to because they forbid that. So now you can't even walk through the tables and see the games being like, they're putting walls in to prevent you from convening, which is the whole idea of a convention.
Yeah.
So for me, what I would like to see more conventions do is, I think the Twitch thing is good, but I don't think it should happen as while the Discord part of the convention is happening. I think it should happen the week before. So the week before, you get all the programming, and then everybody is on Twitch, you know, watching, streaming. That's where the community is. That's where the convening happens. Then the Twitch stuff ends, and everybody migrates over to Discord and actually plays games. That's when your scheduled events are. This way, you have the convening happening. The Looking Glass thing, people have called it the fart cloud. So in and of itself, it's not a terrible thing. There's a couple of issues with it. The first is, like, I'm a vendor. I wasn't able to get a booth this year, but if I had, it would have been a 10x10 booth. That means if you're looking at the Twitch stream and you see the G in my name on the screen, like right over, I'm trying to look right somewhere around, I can't point to it.
Yeah.
But you see the G, that's how big my image would have been. It would have been almost microscopic, and I would have been like, really, like, what's the point? And then so there's this idea that, like, not everybody's being treated equally. It's a little frustrating to see that as a small vendor. Couple that, you click on it and you don't get a human connection. You just get a catalog. And browsing through a catalog has its joys. You know, there's something to be said for browsing through a catalog, but I don't think it's a great convention experience. There's not a lot of convening that happens. So to me, what I wish they would have done, this is what Virtual Gaming Con did a few weeks ago, is an exhibitor booth is a voice chat channel in the Discord, an officially sanctioned voice chat channel. And I think that the size of your booth is related to how many voice chat channels you have, because each one of those corresponds to a table in meat space. So you have a video channel, a voice chat channel in Discord, and when you run a demo, you can share your screen so people walking by can click on it. I'm saying walking by because it's such a perfect analog. You click on it and you see the games people are playing, you hear what they're talking about, and it's like you're sitting in on the demo. It's just such a nifty thing, and I feel that's a tool that needed to be utilized more.
Yeah.
Instead, we've got,
I was going to say, Gil, along that point, what I would love to see is, if you guys remember the early days of web pages when people would join rings, and you would have a ring and you would say, oh, I'm part of this ring, like the toy collector's ring, and you'd have your toy collecting webpage, and then you click to the left and you get the next guy in the rings page, or next gal. And so my biggest problem with this whole experience right now is just literally finding things. It is so hard still. Everything is so shattered and fragmented all over the place. And I find it really hard to navigate right now.
Yeah, the decentralization has been a real struggle. So overall, I think that's like focusing on taking these disparate experiences, disparate experiences, and munging them together into a central experience. And maybe it means one week it's this experience and the next week it's that experience. As long as it means that everybody's doing that kind of experience at the same time, I feel would be much stronger. And then having a place, making sure that everybody has access to those experiences. Notwithstanding tickets, of course, but like maybe you can't play the game, but you can sit in and watch just like a real just like the real thing. The last thing, I know I've been rambling for a while, but I attended a ticketed event that was a video stream. But because it was a ticketed event, they put it on Zoom, which meant it had half the frame rate. The resolution would very frequently drop. It was not a good experience. And I feel like that's backwards. If I'm spending money on an event, it should be high quality. So maybe that means it's if there's a way that you can do, say, a live YouTube link that's unlisted, and you give people the link that way, that might be a way to do it. I'm not sure if that's possible, but there's got to be a way that you can do that stuff.
Yeah. All right, Scott, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I agree with Gil on. I personally, the model that I think would be interesting is if there were a kind of a landing page that had a almost like a snapshot of what was going on the page at the time. So if you're doing a video feed, there's a snapshot of the video. If there's a demo of a game, or there's a link to an ad page or whatever, treat it like a almost like a top view map of a flea market. And so if things were organized that way, I could scroll through kind of a big, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I guess like the Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch or something, but each square had a little advert type window, and then you could click on it and say, oh, this is going on right now. Let me dive into that, and then you can zoom back out. I mean, that for me structurally, I think that might be a better, just because like I said, this whole situation has felt a little fragmented for me, and therefore I know I'm missing a lot of material. Even digging through the catalog system that they have on the Gen Con site, which I think is great, but it's not like having a book in front of you. It's not like having a map in front of you, right? So I think the more we can think about like just the user experience of what that is, I would almost rather it be like, show me the map of what the convention hall was like, and then just let me click on that. Let's see what Restoration Games is up to. Oh, let's see what Formal Fare is up to.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? Some sort of visual interface for the user. But that said, as for the type of events that I would love to see, I kind of would love to see it treated a little bit more like a salon, in the sense that there are people like try to attract, notable people, but have it open to everybody, and let everybody come in, let everybody have their say, have conversation starters, but then allow for the topics to drift a little bit, right? Wherever the conversation goes. There was an event that I had actually been planning right before COVID hit that was meant to be something like this, where everybody was invited to come in and talk and share their opinions, no matter what their experience was. And I was trying to bring in people that had some published work, just so other people would say, oh, hey, this is an opportunity for me to meet and network with these types of people. Very similar to some events that I run through the school that I normally work for. But I think particularly the idea of being able to meet and greet and talk to people that you normally don't have access to. So, a Rob Davio or an Eric Lang or a Matt Leacock or whoever, somebody who has obviously proven themselves and made really great titles, but also are willing to discuss ideas and engage with other people and share ideas and also make an opportunity to meet, right? Like some person, might be living in a part of the world or the country where they'll never get a chance to get to a convention. And so here is their opportunity to meet with somebody that they've always wanted to meet, tell them how much they like their work, and maybe even engage in some meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And also people who can't normally attend conventions because of health reasons, because of job reasons. There's a lot of reasons conventions are inaccessible to people, and virtual conventions really help break down that inaccessibility. I was speaking with someone from Brazil who's like, it's not like I can easily fly to Gen Con all the time. So this is great for him.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see a little less spectating and a little more interaction, I think is ultimately what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. And I've always kind of been excited about digital online things for all of the reasons that you stated, for accessibility, people getting costs, just making it more available to people. I never really got too much into the Gen Can't thing, for example, but I know that that's a thing that people are doing who couldn't go to it. And I feel there's just so much opportunity here, and even a hybrid thing, you know, like maybe you can go there, but there's still some stuff is online. There's just so much space for innovation here. And I do also want to take a moment to say, you know, I work with the Gen Con people. I do weekly streaming for Table Takes for the news show, and they've been working incredibly hard. And I'm incredibly impressed with everything that they have managed to put together. So this isn't something about, oh, this is what Gen Con should be, but this for me is looking forward and saying like, hey, you know, we're still going to be here for a while. Maybe we can take some design thinking, even game design thinking, and make some tools that come out of this that going forward will be incredibly powerful and useful for online conventions, for hybrid models, things that just will have a ton of value. And that's really what it comes back to for me, is like, you need to talk to designers, you need to talk to game designers about this, because the biggest thing is like, and how it's been hard for me, and I've been trying to psych myself up for going in the Discord, digging into this, it's just not fun. Like the fun aspect there. The thing about Gen Con is like, I go in there, like there's things attracting me, there's sights, there's sounds, someone will drag me along, and there will be surprise, delight, you know, all of these emotions and experience design. So the actual, like, what do I feel? What is the feel of this experience? What is the feel of this convention? What do I feel when I'm going into the Discord? What do I feel when I'm looking through the list of potential things? And right now, a lot of the things I'm feeling is overwhelmed, confused, uncertain, scared, nervous, you know.
And still isolated.
Yeah, isolated, intimidated too. And I think a lot of this comes down to, again, going forward in the future, hosting. You know, how do I take all of these people who are clearly excited about this thing we're doing, and how do I make them feel comfortable at home? I'm welcoming these people into my home, which is now a digital home. Usually that's the physical Gen Con, you know, how do I make people feel comfortable and welcome? And there's a lot of stuff you can do in a physical space, but in a digital space, some just things off the top of my head I've been thinking about is like, well, get people to be comfortable with Discord, get them to be comfortable with the community, like building up and sustaining communities in different places. One of the things that's really been rattling around my head that I want to build, I don't know if I have time or the skills, but just a space. I don't think it can quite be as elaborate as like Second Life or World of Warcraft or even Animal Crossing. Like maybe a future model, but for the simple model, you're just dots. You know, everyone's just dots in this multiplayer space moving around. You just bounce into each other. Maybe you're not even talking, maybe there's not even voice, but you can emote, and your circle avatar has a color to it, you know, you have an outfit or a hat or something, right? And just being able to like move, like, hey, okay, I see there's thousands of people in this space, so all of our dots are just there, and I don't feel as isolated, I don't feel as alone.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if you could customize the avatar? I mean, there's all these things you could do in real life, like when Stephen Bonacore couldn't attend PAX Unplugged and BGG Con simultaneously, so he sent a cardboard cutout of himself to PAX Unplugged and went to BGG Con. Like, there's stuff like that there's room to do online. So can you imagine if Matt Leacock gives a talk on one of his pandemic games, but his avatar is of the blow-up of COVID-19, you know? So his avatar is like the virus just hovering, walking down the hall of the virtual ICC. You know, that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of delight and surprise that that is missing from an online experience. That like a virtual experience, a VR experience, augmented experience would bring back in.
And taking a lot of things, wrapping that all in a package, again, why it's tricky, low cost, low time investment, low technical overhead. So that's why I think something like, you know, I used to play WoW, like I love going in that space, but there's overhead for learning how to navigate in a 3D space. Making the models and stuff is incredibly time consuming. And if something in a browser, you know, low processing power, or you can't necessarily have a whole world, you know, so there are limitations there, but I think exploring in that space in the future, you know, could come up with some really great solutions. Love to talk about this more, but I think we only got about 10 minutes until Gil heads off to his next fabulous event. So I want to pivot and talk a little bit about Ludology. I mean, this is Ludology Live. I hope you've all been enjoying this little bit different direction for the episode. I think it's very interesting. And again, if people did have specific questions, we'll have some time at the end to answer that. But we want to bring it back to Ludology and especially just talk a little bit. I'm sure as longtime listeners have noticed, and before I go any further, thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who's listened. Double special thanks to all of our patrons on Patreon who have supported the show. Super appreciate it. The show wouldn't exist without you all. So huge thanks. We really appreciate it. And I know people have reached out to me saying they really enjoy the show. So we always love getting that feedback. But I'm sure, as I said, longtime listeners will have noticed a little bit of a change in the show over the last year or so. I know for Gil and Scott and I, we've been having conversations behind the scenes, and taking some time to really dig in and think about, what the show was, what it is, what it could be, and think about and discuss that. So let's share some of our thoughts real quick. Scott, if you want to kick us off here.
Sure. Well, first of all, I mean, the biggest change for me is actually being involved in the conversations.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I was a voice that either dropped in once a month or very infrequently as a guest whenever Jeff had some topic that he felt was relevant. Just on that note about biography of a board game, I'm actually coming up on the 50th episode.
Wow!
Woo, congratulations!
So I'm excited, and I have something special planned. Hopefully, people won't be too upset by it. but I'm looking forward to having that air and doing more. And we have a post in the guild. So if you ever have suggestions for games, usually 10 years and older is kind of my only criteria. But if you have something that I haven't done yet, and once again, I have a geek list of all the ones that I've done. So I'll post that one as well in the notes. But other than that, what I really have been enjoying, I sometimes I feel a little spectatory because you guys are doing so many episodes and I just kind of pop in from time to time. But somebody recently posted kind of a review saying that this era of Ludology is much more heart-centric than just head-centric. We're still trying to be smart. We're still trying to be academic. We're still trying to be logical about how we address games. But both Gil and Emma, I feel like you have brought a lot of heart to this program, and thinking about topics that are not just how we play together, but how we treat the people that we play with. And so myself, I really appreciate that. And I think this is a great trend. It's definitely one that maybe is a sign of the times, but that's okay. I think a little more love is definitely needed in the world. And you guys are doing a great job showing some love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely trying to make sure that that's an ongoing part of the show. How about you, Gil? What are your thoughts on the current philosophy and direction of the show?
Yeah, so we have some code words, Emma and I, for the tone and tenor of the episodes. We use the words crunchy and chewy.
Yeah.
Crunchy episode, or like the classic Ludology episodes with Jeff and Ryan and Jeff and Mike, where they really dove into the mechanisms of the game and discussed what makes worker placement tick, what makes deck building tick. And I don't really want to stray too far from that core, but Emma and I are very interested in the chewier parts of game design. A lot of the stuff that we've been posting about recently, stuff like safety at the gaming table, stuff like education in games, stuff like just the general experience of playing a game. And to me, that is such an important part of game design. And I see a lot of people now migrating more to it, whereas 10 years ago it was like, well, how do these mechanisms work together? These days I see a lot of new designers saying, how does this game make me feel?
Yeah.
And I think that's so critical to game design. So we've been dipping a lot into the RPG and LARP world to get that, because I feel like they've been very, very forward in answering questions like this, which is why we've been diving so much into those worlds and talking to RPG designers and LARP designers and asking them these questions. And I think we get so much more fruitful discussions out of them, because a lot of times when board game people talk about, well, how do we incorporate more stories into games? They wind up chasing their own tail because there's not as much to build on. There's a lot of new stuff we have to make, or we can take a look at what other people have done and start bringing that into board games. And so I think that's a lot more useful, and that's why we've been going in those directions for those Chewy episodes. I've really been enjoying them. I mean, one of my favorite episodes is still the episode we did before Emma joined with Jason Morningstar, and that was one of my first experiences of being like, well, the RPG designers have a lot to tell board game designers, and I really have been enjoying those discussions.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Gil, about the chewy and the crunchy. I will say for myself, as the newcomer to the show, the newbie, only been here for a little over a year now, and kind of when I first came onto the show, it was a little intimidating, just trying to get a sense, fit into the show and, not make too many waves. And as I've been here longer, I've just thought a lot about the show and about my own personal design philosophies. And I see the show as two things: history and future. So it's important to look to the past and understand the past, which is why I play a lot of board games. I want to play every game, I want to play as many different styles of games so I can learn from them. But also looking to the future, you have to make a little bit of a break with the past in a lot of ways if you really want to get innovation and discovery and creativity. You can't be too beholden to the past. So I never want to cut that off completely. Like, I always want to keep going back and saying, like, this is our roots, this is what we came from. And I will also say, has become very clear, especially in the last couple of months, our past is rooted in a system that hasn't always made it possible and easy for everyone to succeed. So, with a lot of the past shows, it's a lot of white male designers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, that is our roots and our history. But going forward, it's very important to me to show there is diversity in this industry. There's a lot of women, a lot of people of color, non-binary, LGBTQ, like all the different marginalized groups exist in this space. And it's been very, very important to me to surface these people and showcase these people. And part of that has been the driving force of moving away from what we've done in the past, because they aren't as much rooted. If you just look at the hobby, gaming, crunchy side, it's not as diverse, right? And so I think it's been a dual benefit, right? To kind of get more voices, get more creativity, more creative thinking into the podcast, and get people who might not have been showcased on the show otherwise. So that's been very exciting and very important to me. And yeah, just striking that balance, keeping kind of the expectations of the show of, we're going to really dig into games, we're going to think about them. That's really what it comes down to, thinking about game design. There's just so much to game design to talk and think about, just
enormous.
Exploring that.
Yeah. I'm going to have to leave pretty soon, but I just want to add one last thing. Agreed 100% with what Emma said, and I think a really good illustration of that is my first the game that kind of got me excited about playing modern board games is Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico, if it were to be designed as a new game now and released as a new game now, and I'd be like, well, are you sure you want to say, these are your colonists and they're brown tokens and they work in the plantations? Do you understand what a plantation was really like? That sort of thing. So, honoring the past, looking at what Puerto Rico has given us, but at the same time looking at the present and future and saying, okay, well, here's the problem with designs like Puerto Rico and what they're really saying, even though they may not intend to say it, and saying, okay, well, what can we take from the past and what should we really leave behind?
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, even like myself as a designer, there's some topics that I have thought about as game designs, and I'm like, this doesn't need to be told anymore. This colonization.
Mhm.
I had a really great design for a game based on the ice trade of the upper mid-Atlantic area, where they would ship ice down to Jamaica and all these other southern places. And to be honest, even though the game itself didn't deal with that aspect of it, it still was part of that economy. And I said, you know what? It's just I don't need to make a game about that. Even
Yeah.
if it's tangential, it's not. There's other topics I can talk about instead.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of stop as the game designer and just go, what's the ad? Like, what's the value add to the conversation? Maybe there's other things we should be discussing instead.
Yeah.
Folks, I've got to head off now for my event. But if you're watching, don't leave, because Emma and Scott will continue the conversation. It's been a great chatting with you. Can't wait to record more episodes with you. Don't forget my Twitch channel, twitch.tv. That's the thing I'm pushing. Twitch.tv/GilHova. And I'm out of here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Gil.
Take care, Gil. Thanks. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully this doesn't break now. Oh, it looks okay. Wow. It was like a magic. I'm going to post that link to Twitch, to Gil's channel real quick. TV.
So if any of you have questions, we would love to hear them. Why don't you write them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them.
Yeah, and while people are thinking about their questions, we do have one more topic that we can kind of talk about and go back and forth. So yeah, agreed. Open for questions. But until they start to roll in, Scott, let's talk a little bit about, the kind of the broader context of game design right now, and kind of how we see the industry moving forward from where we are right now.
Right. My own personal opinion, and this is just kind of maybe where my head is at right now based on the games that I'm making for other people and for myself, is this desire to take kind of the sensibility of what's known as the mass market and applying it a little bit more into hobby gaming.
Yeah.
Because I think that this is how we are going to get more people into games. Having movies and television shows and things like this, and YouTube channels and Twitch streams, letting people know how great games are a good start. But ultimately, we want the audiences to feel comfortable in the fact that when they open a game up, or they buy a game, or look even at the back of the box of the game, they're not too intimidated with what they're playing. And so I've been thinking a lot about not just the simplicity, in user interface and rules and things like that, but also the topics.
Yeah.
Like for example, the other day I was kind of musing, hey, it would be really fun to make a game about pets who make their owners fall in love. Because
yeah.
there's not a lot of games about pets.
Yeah.
And B, there's almost no games about falling in love. There's maybe two that I can think of. Mm-hmm. And yet, when I just kind of posted it on my Facebook page, and I swear I've got more responses from that post than anything other game related I posted in the past few months. And so to me, that says these are topics that people are interested in, ones that are kind of about the human condition, or at least about kind of fun things in life. And it's not just, elves and sci-fi and all the, don't get me wrong. I love those types of games, and I will still make games about those topics. But I think that there's, just like the film industry, I always go, where's our dramas? Where's our comedies? Where's our documentary board games?
Yeah.
That Einstein game is about the closest, I think, to a documentary board game that's out there, right?
Yeah.
But yet there's so much fodder for us as game designers to mine.
Yeah, I want to hop in there for a second. And, I've been talking to more mass market or mass plus publishers. And, there's a huge space for that. The board game industry could grow orders of magnitude tenfold just by getting these millions of other people into the fold. And I was actually talking on my game designer Slack the other day about, we had a chat. We had a Slack chat with all my designer friends. It was super fun. But we were talking about, hey, what about all these super complex games that are still selling many, many copies to a more mass audience? And like, it's not necessarily a simpler game that's a mass market game, right? Like some of the mass market games, Betrayals sells pretty well at mass, Terraforming Mars, Wingspan all sell pretty well at mass. Like, why are those succeeding? And I think what it is just the readability of the game. Exactly what you said, Scott. You know, pets making people fall in love. I get it. You know, it's like, and then if I walk 3 spaces, it's like, okay, yeah, you're, you know, you might have a programming aspect to it or a hand management aspect, but that all fades away. Just like, oh, I get it. Yeah, obviously, I'm going to do a pickup line, so I draw a card from the pickup line deck or whatever. You know, if you can make the games legible in that way, the rules might not even be that much simpler, but they just make sense to people.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just that clear communication is something that, you know, even the most experienced designers have difficulty sometimes with it. Eric, I remember hearing Eric Lane talk about, you know, how he feels that writing rules is his challenge. And, you know, Eric Lang is, you know, considered one of our top of the game designers right now. And yet, you know, he's still having difficulty communicating his ideas to the players. And so this is just something that A, we all can keep working on, but I think B, we need to start looking to outside sources for lots of things, not just maybe our subject matter, but even the way that we present, the materials that we use to make our games. I think that there's so much space that the game industry has not mined at all, that we really you know, I don't know about you, Em. I'm sure that you're the same way, but I'm always looking at everything to like, how can I turn this thing into a game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, so I think we need to just realize more of that mentality as an industry.
Yeah. Looks like we do have a couple of questions here, so we can pause and go to those. Carrie McDuff asks, what do you think about the Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion arrangement with Target? Is this a game changer or a jump the shark moment? I need to actually check. I'm not actually sure what the arrangement is there.
Carrie, are you talking about the exclusivity of Jaws of the Lion? Because this is a very common thing with Target. I have been, because I have a game at Mass and I talk to the publishers about this, I have a little bit of insight about this. And Target is very keen on exclusivity, where Walmart is very keen on provability. So for Walmart to pick up a game, the game has to have already done well in other markets, where Target is like, well, we want this just for ourselves. And then eventually Jaws of the Lion, I think somebody actually just said that they saw it at their friendly local game store just like today or yesterday. I actually saw. So I think the time period, I think it's a few months. I remember there was a Star Wars, the kind of the reskin of X-Wing that had the Force Awakens. That was also a Target exclusive. And then after about 3 months, it became open to all the other stores. So I don't think it's a game changer, because ultimately those games are going to get out to the other markets. They'll get out to Amazon and the friendly local stores and things like that. It's just the way that Target is choosing to do business. And you have to kind of play by those rules. You may or may not like it. You may feel like it's a little elitist, but in the long run, those games will get out to the people. That it's not just going to be only Target. So I don't think it's as dire a thing maybe as the question asker thinks it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because it's a little tough for me to answer the question, because I'm a little bit of, I'm going to say, Luddite when it comes to board games. Like, I have so many games at this point. I see so many games. I play a lot of games, prototype games. So my game playing is very filled up with very many different things. And to purchase a game, I kind of need to play it at this point. Like, I play a lot of games before they're published in the prototype stage. So I have a good sense of whether I'll enjoy it. But I buy very few games without playing them in some ways. A little tougher without conventions now. But even then, you know, for a Kickstarter, I was like, oh, I'm excited about this. But I found myself, as my collection grows, I actually made a big purge of my collection. I'm not as much on the hype train, but I know for a lot of people that is a big part of it. They want the game as soon as it comes out, and so there's definitely something to balance there. You know, for I don't want to say that's wrong. You know, I don't want to say people who just want to have it the day it comes out. The same with the people who want to see the movie the day it comes out, right? I think that's absolutely reasonable, and it's important to recognize those two different segments of game playing population. And it's also tough from the designer side of it, because, you know, you might make a great game as a designer, and the publisher makes it Target exclusive, because once you sign it over, that's kind of their decision at that point, right? And as a designer, it's great to get your game in Target, you know, getting that exposure, same with having your game on Amazon, you know, I love it when people buy from local game stores. I want local game stores to continue to exist. I push people towards that, but again, like, we wouldn't sell as many games if they weren't in these mass market places. So there's a lot of complexities there. And I think what it comes down to is, you know, the same voting with your dollars, communicating your feelings about these kinds of things. It won't always make a difference, but, you know, you can lots of publishers do different things. Lots of publishers just do Kickstarter, right? If you didn't get it on Kickstarter, you're not going to get it anywhere else. And they just do new Kickstarters for it. Lots of designers just do local game stores, don't do Kickstarter at all, just go straight to retail. There's so many different business models there. So I think, you know, just understanding what it means for the publishers, for the business models, for the designers, everyone's doing the best they can to survive and exist in this world. Board games don't have a huge margin, so sometimes that can just mean it's easier, or someone's company continues to exist because they're distributing that way. Have a little understanding, you know, express your feelings about this, but just kind of understand there's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, it can be hard for the consumer, partially because this is something that they feel so passionate about. But as you say, having some knowledge and insight to how things are done at least will give you a little understanding, and then maybe with that understanding you can go, okay, I may or may not agree with this, but I at least understand why it's being done that way. And then you can say, all right, well, let me seek out other alternatives, or let me just be patient.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't know of any game that's been exclusive forever. There's been usually timed exclusivities for a number of months, for a year or whatever. So there will, for pretty much every game, there will eventually be ways to purchase this outside of those big box stores. Right. Up next, Javian says, Emma Larkins, when are you getting your Genius Grant for Abandon All Artichokes? I believe it's in the mail. Thank you. I hope it's in the mail. I got to frame it and put it up on my wall. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Javian.
So Abe Underhill and E. Lackey asked kind of a similar question. So maybe we can
well, I think we have Board Game Feast first, if I'm going.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, Feast.
The list, yeah.
What are your thoughts on tutorializing new players? I heard there's a Metal Gear Solid game with a single-player tutorial that teaches you how to teach the game. Yeah, that's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen other games try to do things like this, like Friedman Freeze's his series of games that fast forward, right? They teach you how to play as you go. I'm sure Emma, there are a couple other examples you can think of.
There's some with built-in tutorials, not necessarily single player. Root has a great kind of play-by-play if you're playing for the first time. Lots of board games have a single player mode. Wingspan, you know, it's got like an automata that you can play it through, especially if you're going to teach it to other players. Like, being able to do it, you just work through the steps on your own, can be very powerful. I always go back to Magic and Arena. Magic the Gathering Arena is just such a great learning experience for Magic's a complicated game, and the fact you can hop in there and play against a robot and learn the basics is very powerful.
Yeah, even the little they used to have little monocolored decks that I would use in class to teach new players how to play Magic, which was a great idea. I think that anything we can do as game designers to communicate our ideas simply and effectively is a good thing. So I'll be watching the Metal Gear Solid game. It looked like, Emma, you were looking forward to it as well, and see how they do it. And then, you know, of course, if there's some great ideas, there's no harm in taking a good idea and reapplying it to your own. You know, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So Anytime somebody comes up with something cool, don't be afraid to. I mean, don't steal it, but definitely use it to inspire you on your own designs.
Yeah, and it is something to realize. Like, not everyone has a consistent game group. A lot of people play games, also not with hobbyists, with non-gamers, and you having worked at Mock's boarding house and seeing people in the cafe, they just want to go. You see their eyes roll into the back of their heads if it takes more than 5 minutes to explain the game, and if the person teaching the game doesn't know the rules, it can kind of be a disaster, and they don't want to look dumb in front of their friends, right? Like, that's a huge thing, especially if you're teaching to non-gamers. You don't want to be fumbling around with things. So watching videos is great, reading the rule book is great, but going through a tutorial, learning, playing can teach, right? As Scott, I'm sure that you'll agree with that. If you play through it, it can make so much more sense, even more so than watching a video. So especially for a more complex game, I love that, and I would love to, I'll sit down and move the pieces around if I'm learning a game before you play. Like, okay, I think I understand how this works, but any way that you can streamline that, I think is awesome.
Yep.
All right, what was the next one? You said Abe and...
Yeah, Abe Underhill and E. Lackey were asking about trying to find ways for players. Abe particularly talks about children to interact without physical interaction. How are game designers using the creative constraint? So this sounds like how to make games virtually, how to play them virtually. And then E. Lackey adds to that, if I can't game physically with my friends, why should I buy the physical copy?
Mm-hmm.
And so how have you been adapting to Zoom and to, like, not just playtesting, because we do a fair amount of playtesting, but really just if you're looking to play games for enjoyment. Emma, what kind of solutions have you found?
Yeah. So I'd say for interacting without physical interactions, there's a lot of great tools there. Tabletop Simulator is excellent. I do realize there's an investment there, but I think there's ways to buy multiple copies. It goes on sale. Even just playing around the sandbox mode. Like, you get a couple of kids in there, and they're on voice chat, and you're, like, throwing dice at each other, flicking things at each other, flipping the table. It's interacting, right? Capturing that interaction is just so powerful and so meaningful. Just like, I hand this dice to you, or I put this dice in front of you, and then you do something with it. Or I move this dragon through space, and then you flip the dragon. Like, somebody having a thing and someone else touching that, we can't do that in person now. So doing it in a virtual space like Tabletop Simulator is great. Tabletopia I haven't used as much, but it's another thing. You just get in games and play and interact that way. There's also other tools, even just online co-working tools or networking tools. Draw.io is actually pretty cool. You can get multiple people in there. Like a Google Doc or Draw.io is similar, but for drawing. Yet even in a Trello board or in Slack interacting, I put it on pause, but I was very excited for a while about making games in Trello, in Slack, on Twitter, all of these platforms. I think there's creative ways, innovative ways we can discover to interact with each other. And then video games, online portals for things. Jackbox, there's some things aren't as good for kids, but there's definitely things in there where anyone can get accessible just having a phone. So it's a very powerful tool you can use without having to buy anything, invest in a lot of stuff. Animal Crossing, if kids have a Switch, even other multiplayer online games where you kind of have your avatar, and like for my niece and nephew now who have the Switch and have Animal Crossing, just going to their island, handing them stuff, working on something, showing them something that you made in a digital space. I think there's a lot of tools in there that you can use for interaction, especially with game designers. And then just writing in cameras. You can do a lot of things. I've done some gaming events where we would play games like Just One, word games, where you would hold your stuff up to the camera, or someone would give a prompt and everyone writes in their own space. So that feeds into a little bit of designing with these constraints, is games that you can just play on camera with stuff that you have in your home and making a rule set that works for that.
Yeah, I think a good thing to remember is, I gave this analogy to a class I had recently, which is think about what video games have had to deal with. For decades, really the interface are things like these,
Yeah.
which almost resemble nothing that the human body has on it. It's just buttons. It's some little wiggly knobs. Maybe this thing will vibrate to let you know you're doing something. It's almost like you're an amputee. You're working with this very limited set of tools,
Yeah.
but yet you're still trying to communicate. But really, what it is when you're thinking about these different systems that you're using to play games through, I would say focus a little bit more towards what this system does best. And what it does best is it shows things, it hears and says things, right? So don't worry about the tactility. Don't worry about the any other aspect of it, the having to be shoulder to shoulder or that. Think about, as a game creator at least, think about what this does well. But then as a game player, think about what are the types of games that work well through this medium. This is why I think role-playing games have just kind of hyper-accelerated in the last few months.
Yeah.
Because it's really just storytelling. There's die rolling, there's some other things, miniatures. They're all great, but ultimately, for that type of game experience, you just need somebody to be telling you a story and then somebody reacting to that and conversation happening on that. And so I would say as a somebody who is dealing with audience like students or kids or something like that, start with those types of games. And then once you get them into a comfort zone and they're familiar with using the medium, then you can keep moving forward, and keep trying. And some things might not work, but eventually, play to the strengths. That's my advice.
Yeah, and you can modify, you can do a lot of stuff with a camera. I've seen people taking existing games and being creative with the ways that they play online. People have played Abandoned All Artichokes online. One way of just one person manages it completely, so other people don't need copies of the game. You show their hand and you shuffle and you have them mark it. But another way, if other people do have copies of the game, and this works, I've also played Tiny Towns online. Individuals have the copies and they can move their own things. For a card game like Abandoned All Artichokes, you put all the cards face up and one person has kind of the master market, right? So they draw a card and it's a beet, then everyone takes the beet and they put it in their market. And you take a card from someone's hand and you show them, like, oh, this is the onion, and now your onion goes back to the face-up supply. So you can do a lot of creative workarounds to make these games still work. And then as we move forward, thinking about things that will become physical someday, but digital first with, added benefits. The physical isn't necessary, but I think for design moving forward, we're not going to do this forever. Time is hard to tell. It might still be a year or more, but we will come back to the physical. So as you're designing games, think about things. They can go on Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, but then think if this was to be physical, what extra delight or enjoyment could come from this? Elaki had talked about, why do I even buy the physical copies of the games now? This is a tough question. I think a lot of people are probably going to be buying fewer games unless they have co-quarantine people that they can play with in person. Is still a reason to buy the physical game. And same for Arena, you're absolutely correct. I have some Magic cards, but we sold most of our physical collection because it's so much easier to collect it digitally. So I think there will be a little bit of a drop-off of buying the physical games, but as a designer and the games that you are looking to purchase, there will always be that physicality and that enjoyment there. So the games that I would buy, like I just bought Sonara by my friend Rob, who designed this game, and it's a flicking game, right? You can do flicking and physics in Tabletop Simulator, but I think it's just going to be so much more satisfying in the physical version. So yeah, there will be some changes there, and I'm sure that buying of physical copies is going to drop off a little bit. But as game designers, I think we can look to the future, a future where we will be able to play physical games again, but then look to the hybrid as well. How can I make something with cards or tokens or dice or whatever it is that can be enjoyable both digitally and in the future physically? And then also small player counts, right? Like a lot of people are quarantining with one other person or just solo. So what games can have a single player mode or just be single player or just be really good at two players? and then in the future expand when we can be with more people.
Right. Yeah. Whew.
All right. I'm going to see, did you see any more questions in here? I think that was...
We were having a lively debate over the merits of virtual versus physical goods. I think there's always going to be an audience for both. You know, people thought vinyl was dead, and it came back. You know, myself, the reason why I like owning physical things is, you know, I never have to worry about, you know, if my end my subscription, or some company goes under and decides to delete my account or something like that. You know, it's or even just sometimes there's a little bit of the pride of ownership or collectability. I have a few board games that are kind of low print, almost like boutique games, and I like having those because it's fun to go, look, I've got this very rare kind of thing that a lot of people don't have, you know, and it would be fun to see them virtually, you know. But I also like I've said many times, I like the tactility of board games, so that's a big draw for me.
Yeah, and I think it's good to design your games in such a way that they can be played in Tabletop Simulator even before this, you know, get them. I'm of the camp that putting on there is great, even if it's not necessarily a paid version of the game. I think that, you know, if we stay digital for longer, we might have to judge those, the payments and the money if people aren't selling as much physical. You know, how can we still get revenue from these digital artifacts? But I think you can come up with some creative stuff there. Like, it's all digital now, but once we're in person, like, oh, I'm gonna get the physical version, or what can we have in a physical version? Maybe like the games Tiny Towns or whatever that you can play remotely, where everyone has their own copy of the game. That's very much a potential market. Or even just add-ons, you know, it's okay, I'm playing this digitally, but I get the physical one, making it more like vinyl, you know, leaning into that. Like, how can I make it be just a beautiful artifact for your wall? How can I put a record in there? I don't know. I think there's a lot of space for doing some really fun stuff that will make the physical items still useful and valuable.
I don't think it's an either or. I think that they just both exist, and some people prefer one, some people prefer the other, some people prefer both, and that's okay. I think it's always better to have options. So you know, it's okay. If you don't buy board games anymore, if you just go 100% digital, good for you. You're probably saving a lot of space in your house.
Yeah, and there's, you know, video games have been around for many years, and, you know, keep coming back to these physical games. So it's going to be interesting to see it. And again, I can't stress enough that I want to see designers and publishers and even, you know, connecting more video game designers and analog game designers coming together, seeing like how we can take what's happening to us right now and turn it around and really make some experiences that couldn't have been done before, that are just fun, just amazing and unique and new and fun. I want to shout out to a game I played a little bit ago with Game Biologist, who was in the chat earlier, called This Discord Has Ghosts in It. And it's a game that you can get on itch, and it's literally that. You play it in Discord, and some people are ghosts and some people are investigators. The ghosts don't say anything on voice, but they can hear the investigators chatting, and they post things. They post pictures, and they post videos, and they post sounds, and they're trying to get the investigators to figure out their life story so they can pass on or not pass on. And this wouldn't be possible without, even in person, it would be difficult to do, because you're just inventing text channels as the game goes on. All of a sudden, here's an attic, and it's lit up, right? So now they go into the attic and see what's been posted there. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do fun stuff. And then you could, again, to bring it back to the physical, take that game idea, build upon it, you know. Maybe you can mail something to all the participants, make it more of an event, right? Have something physical that people have cameras that they hold up, or the clues are physical in some way. I think there's a lot of cool ways to combine those two things.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to keep in mind, particularly as somebody who does a monthly history-related podcast segment for the show.
Yeah.
This is a very young entertainment field. Like board games have been around for for a long time, but yet we are still very young in the way that we create and deliver stories and all this, and very much so this Zoom box that we are now all living in is literally months old for people thinking about them as games.
Yeah.
You know, we're not even in the silent film era yet with this. So sometimes it's a little rough for us we want everything to happen right away. Why aren't there all these games that we can play through Zoom or Tabletop Simulator or whatever? And you know, the answers are either be patient or make it yourself, because that's the only really two answers that exist, I think. So my advice is be patient or make it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, we have a few minutes left. I think I'm going to do the outro here, and then maybe just catch up on the chat. Once again, thank you so much for everyone who came in here. We had almost 40 people here at one point, which is, I think, even more than we had last year at the in-person Gen Con Ludology Live. So. And
the chairs are more comfortable.
Yes. Chairs comfortable. You can get snacks more easily. We don't, like, if people are going in and out of the room, we don't get annoyed at you. So a lot of great benefits, right? So I'm going to have each of us talk about where we can find our stuff. Scott, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, gosh, I have several places online. The two best places to kind of keep up with what I'm doing is either at Mr. Boss Design Lair, which is my infrequently updated blog spot, where I talk about game design, board game design, a lot of the things that I'm working on. I'll drop the link into the chat. The other place, although you know, I totally understand at this time, I have a Patreon where I share a lot of behind the scenes game things videos. I even have a print and play game every month. But you know, I get it. Times are tough, so I'm not saying go and do my Patreon. But if you're interested, it's there. And then finally, of course, I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm always sharing things there, and I would love to chat more with all of you. So thank you again for coming. This was fantastic. How about you, Emma? Where can everybody find you?
So you can find me. I'm Emma Larkins pretty much everywhere. I got a website with information. I'm going to post the link there. Twitter is probably where I'm most active. Always love having design conversations on there. I post a lot of stuff, do a lot of chatting with people, go back and forth. I'm Facebook as well, on Instagram. If you just Google search for Emma Larkins. I'm lucky my SEO is pretty good, so you can find most of my stuff there. I'm going to post Gil's site as well, as you mentioned earlier. Twitch.tv/GilHova is where he's going to be streaming a lot of stuff, and also has a website. Cool. So I'm going to do the outro right now, and then we're going to be around for a few minutes, again, catching up on chat, just shooting the breeze, So yeah, do the outro for the recording, and it's going to be about it. We'd like to thank our benefactors, Pacemaker, Adi Naranya, Graham Glaser, James Redmond. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Ludology and make a donation there, or you can go to our website, ludology.net, and you can make a one-time or recurring donation over there through the PayPal icon at the top of the page. So that'll do it for now. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Ludology. And we'll see you around the table.
And keep making games.
Yeah, Gil's going to have to insert his tagline there.
He's gonna have to insert his until then.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. It was so nice to have you.
Yeah.
Have a great Gen Con.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we got about everything. I think I'm going to close it down. Yeah, this has been super awesome chatting with everyone. Have a great rest of your show.
Yeah, take care everybody. Stay safe.
Bye now.